What's good, guys? Hope everyone's doing good, man. It's Saturday here. I just wanted to get ahead of this early. I think it's the adrenaline too. I just got my puppy, so I've been taking care of her. But I wanted to just do this while I had some free time. It's going to be the Sunday scan going into next week. And really, it's going to be the same process, right? I mean, we should all know OPEX plus FOMC week is always going to be crazy. I usually just try to taper back what I'm looking at, and then my execution is usually a little bit more timid. I know a lot of people treat it like the Super Bowl, they go more aggressive, and those are the flashy posts that you see that make you want to do what they're doing, but the risk is just so immense. So, there's a lot of stuff that I did chart that I didn't trade. UPST, was a good example. Carvana was a good example. Peloton was a good example. I know Nvidia on Friday was a good example. But just some of those names, man, just being surrounded with the volatility that comes with FOMC, with an OPEX as big as it was, just didn't feel comfortable trading some of those names, and that's gonna happen, right? Sometimes it's a game time decision. And the stuff that I did hit, right? Google was fantastic throughout the week. There was some Tesla trades that I took, and those may not have been the odd or jaw-dropping 500% that we saw, but I was able to put size on those and build a really good week, right? Google had multiple 30, 25% wins. We had the 80% win as well, and then QQQ on Friday was beautiful. I took a week of time on that. Had I actually shortened up my expiration, those would have been multiple 100%, but I took the safe route, right? And those ended up going, I think, around 45%. I had some good size on that one as well. I'll go ahead and do the recap video after this as well, just going over all the stuff I took on Friday. But I'm happy with my performance, right? It's not a sprint necessarily. It's a marathon. If you're sprinting, you're gonna fall, and trust me, you will fall. There'll be a time here shortly where the market's gonna change. It's gonna have a shift, and it's gonna catch people off guard. And if you're doing what you did before in terms of sizing and being so aggressive, and just kind of chasing anything that shines, right? You're going to get caught. So I'm just doing what I know best and just playing it safe. But wanted to go over my top setup this week. You guys already can see it on the screen here. There's a couple other names that I want to look at, but I want to start here with Tesla. So Tesla is going to look a little bit different, right? There's only one level missing. I've had this spot marked here, right, which was this daily resistance. But if you guys do remember, I had this zone marked here, right, which was this gap fill level. And this was a pretty big spot, right? This was a level that was fought over for many days slash weeks, right? If we get rid of this, you guys can see pretty much every time well, it depends on where you took it, right? I usually had either the wick itself or the body. But really, you can see every time I try to break out over the gap, there was no definitive close over. It would fake it out, move back down into this gap fill, right? Which I was looking to take a much bigger size than I currently have once this filled. Unfortunately, we just never got the fill, and I didn't feel comfortable sizing in super heavy. So I do have one contract of January 260s, right? But there is an opportunity here, right? I'll tell you guys what I'm planning to do here in a second, but you don't want to take too much more than you can handle, I guess, right? You don't need to carry that from down here all the way to the next target, right? You guys can take things bit by bit. So if you get in down here, you could take it up here, right? And then from here, now there's a whole new range, right? So instead of carrying so much risk over two ranges, you can just take it bit by bit, like I always say. There's a new opportunity up here. Okay, so just wanted to preface that really quickly, but you guys can see, man, it never really got a definitive close over. It would, fake the breakout, come back down, a couple wicks over the top, come back down, and then finally, I think we got our answer here, right? You guys can see we had this low volume move down, and then a very, very high volume move up. And this high volume is what broke us through 242, right, and pushed us to the upper extreme of this week, right? And now we can definitively say we shouldn't revisit this gap. This gap, I think it's kind of made its decision on the directionality of it. I don't think we're going to come back to this. I think this is going to be a runaway gap now. Buyers aren't going to let it come back down, guys. Maybe sometime in the future, this will be a trade later down the line, but the market's strong now. Tesla's extremely strong. So what we do is we now get rid of this zone and this weekly level here, right? These consistent daily highs made a very nice weekly high, right? Multiple weeks of highs there. This is now our support, right? So we come down here, and we're going to be looking pretty much to buy any dip off of this, if I'm being completely honest. I actually hope there's a dip because, and you guys should know this, right? Anytime there's an OPEC state, specifically a very large one, we see a window of weakness prior to that, right, with the rebalancing and the shifting of positions. The market's just a little bit weaker with that. But we are coming into Christmas, right? So that window of weakness is going to be shrunk by quite a bit. People have to make their decisions much quicker, and a lot of people are just going to jump on the side of where the market's already trending, right, which is going to be to the upside. So I'm thinking, if anything, right, I think we could get this quick sell-off maybe Monday, Tuesday, where this pulls down into this 246.70 zone. I would look to grab maybe a couple weeks out, maybe even a month, just buy some time on these for 270 calls. And then I would look for it to trade back up, hold this zone here, and then make its way up there by, I would say, the end of the year, right? Something like that, or maybe the first week of January. But that's really what I'm looking for. And my target is pretty simple. Right, it's these weekly highs here at 270, and if we get really lucky, right, maybe hold a little bit left over for the 280 range. That would be ideal. But this is really what we're looking at. Monday, Tuesday, like I said, I would ideally like 246.70, but considering how high of volume it is here in the breakout here, and considering we have an inside bar as well, right, with this candle here, I wouldn't be surprised if we gap up. If that's the case, right, I'm comfortable kind of going here, grabbing a pullback, and then same concept, right? Even honestly too, there's another scenario that this just goes red to green really quickly, right? Because anything with red would be underneath this zone here. So slight pullback under, reclaim of this zone, same concept, right? I would be looking to take those. But picture perfect world as we get an opportunity down here again, right? With just some kind of retest post OPEX weakness. I would love to get that spot. And like I said, I would be looking for, man, I don't know the exact date. I'd probably go January's again, maybe even February, 270 or 280 calls. That would be the sweet spot. But man, this chart, guys, I think this chart is primed. I think this thing's going to squeeze. I really do. I'm almost positive this thing squeezes. So that's going to be focus number one for me, all right? I'll just pull it out to the weekly again so you guys can just see really quickly kind of the levels, right? Remember, this is just one weekly high, so we'd want to get this pullback, just, consistent weekly highs here at 246.70. Buy the dip off of this one. If we do get the breakout here, I mean, like I said, I am comfortable adding some size on that red to green move from there, and then we're looking, and you guys should be able to see this clear as day, right? Just the targets here. It's so easy, right? I think 268.94, 278.98. I don't know if this would happen. That would have to be an insane move. If anything can do it, it's Tesla. But yeah, Tesla's ready. I think this is the number one chart I want to be focusing on and putting my capital in, and really just stocking this chart for dip entries, right? So focus number one there, Tesla. No surprise here, guys. Hopefully this doesn't get you guys mad, but Google's still on the list. This is an easy number two. I actually don't mind having Google and Tesla simultaneously be big positions in my port. If anything, it's probably just going to be these two. But this chart, man, I think it's primed. I think that this, I think there was something crazy that happened with Gemini, Wall Street, or whoever it was, really liked what they saw. This did sell down and fill the gap where we started to note last week, and I'm thankful we saw it, was the micro accumulation down here, right? And then it started to really build over several days where they kept rewashing the levels, and I was walking you guys through it, and then we saw this crazy stop loss rate. This was 100% a stop loss rate. They were trying to take out and really dig out any longs, until this higher low trend line that we can see. Obviously, this is a pattern here. We have a triangle, but I really want to emphasize the fact that they did come after any stops underneath this gap, and they probably took out a lot of people, but really it closed back above, right? And you guys can see that this period here for the sell-off, right, the high volume came at the top of the triangle, and then it obviously gapped down on the Gemini news, but notice the complete absence of volume here, and then the sweep itself right down here, high volume, and then the recovery was even higher volume. So the interest actually remains in the long side. It doesn't really remain in the short side. So huge little thing I noticed there. Obviously, too, and just kind of understanding what a liquidity sweep is, where the liquidity sweep points of interest would come from, right? Especially after noticing a reaccumulation or an accumulation that we saw like that. This is such an interesting chart, guys. Obviously Tesla has a great setup. I think the risk reward here, especially being at the lower extreme of this trend line, it favors the long side so well. And it has a revisit up here towards this lower high trend line, right? Now, I expect the expansion to be pretty quick if it does end up happening, right? This has been lagging a lot of the names in the tech, sector. But dude, I would expect maybe like 139.42. If I'm being super conservative, 138.57. And if we get some kind of crazy move, I could see us retesting these highs up here. Okay, so 141 would probably be like outlier target, but I'm gonna settle with my personal target being around 139.42. Worst case scenario, I think that this, let's say it ends up breaking back under Thursday's low, right? Which would be like right around 129.69. I probably would stop out of this trade. You can expect this to trade down to this level here, right? And then what I would think would happen is some kind of sweep under this, right? So let's say it kind of pushes down, gets you a lower high, it rejects this gap, right? Moves down. I could see it kind of like hitting here and then sweeping under, right? Filling the gap here, right? And then coming back up, boom, boom, big move. I don't know where it'd be, but I can see it like maybe here, and then I could see it trading out towards that. This would be a long period of time, of course. This would probably be a month, 2 months, maybe even longer. But Google, it's just something I want to go long on. I don't think there's a reason to necessarily go short. Just where at, right? And you have to understand exactly where you're going to lose at and how you're going to lose. I think the way I just depicted that is a good explanation of how that loss would come about. So if it does fade under 129.69, I'd probably just sit on hands, set some alerts, and really just look to go long at this higher low here, right, into the gap, right? And then I would have my alerts. And you guys can already see, right, I have my alerts set here at this 126.49 to 126.93 spot. I'd probably put a good chunk of money back into this trade here and look for, I would say, if this gap doesn't fill already, for 134 would be my main target, and then excess for anything higher, okay? Weekly wise, I mean, daily gives you the story that you need to have, but like the weekly itself, guys, I mean, like we have an inside week here, right, with high volume, right? And we know a lot of that volume, where did that come from, right? It came from the sweep day and then the move back into the range, right? Obviously, this as well, but that wasn't during that week. Okay, the week consisted of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So we know that a lot of that volume came from this dig or this liquidity sweep under to basically pull out any longs with stops. And that was a deep, I'm telling you guys, this was crazy. And then the re-entry back into the range. So, Google, with that, the inside week, that is very, very high volume week, even higher than the one with the Gemini, right? So I would expect us to move off of this higher low trend line towards the top of this range, right? That would be our expansion. That would be the move, towards the top of the inside week high. And I'm really excited. I think this is another good opportunity on Google going into the end of the year. It's one of my favorites for sure. So that is focus setup number 2. And between this and Tesla, these are the main two I want to focus on, but I will include a few others. All right, guys, let's switch off into a bearish chart really quickly. This is probably the only one I'm actually interested in. Too short here. Is DraftKings, right? This chart doesn't look the best. I mean, if you were an early buyer, that's awesome. Congratulations. If you kind of got anywhere down there, I mean, that was pretty much the best spot to get it with this retest of this weekly resistance. But that was forever ago, right? And I think a lot of this is now selling into news. I'm seeing more and more people kind of that jumped into the DraftKings hype with advertisements. Obviously they did very well during earnings, et cetera, and a lot of people started to catch the move here, which was still a good entry right down here, but people bought up here too, right? These are kind of the two main spots everyone got in on, and really I think it's a lot of the I guess sell the news aspect of it. A lot of the early people down here selling into the highs up here, and the chart just doesn't look good now. If you guys can't tell, we have a pretty easy identifiable lower high here. Very, very strong wick candle too. It has followed by some volume, right? And then you're starting to see the sell-off continue with volume, right? Typically, you'd want to see this subside leading back into this weekly level here. but it is actually increasing on volume. So really what I'm thinking about doing is grabbing, once again, a swing here. Really it just kind of comes down to this level, right? This 34.49. I'll explain the green line here in a second, but I'm either looking for a push under, right, retest of, and then a sell through, right? Or what I'm looking for is a push into the level, lower high, probably into these daily lows here. So I was thinking like 36, 36.5, maybe 37, which would be the Friday's high, right? And then see the volumes kind of weak there, it reject, and then I'll be looking to take a short, right? And then we'll probably get subsequent lower highs, something like this, right? So reiterate, right? Either a break under 34.49, retest of that level and reject, look for a short, or right, other option is it sells down into this spot, it catches a bid because I think it honestly should, bounce off 34.49, push back up and retest either into these lows here on the daily, which is like I said 36.13, 36 range, or it retests Friday's high, right, which would be 36.74, and we'd be looking for a rejection there. I would enter short, and I would just be looking to ride out any lower highs, right? Obviously, I would add on a confirmed lower high on the daily, but to be able to just ride this out, right, and risk 36.74, 37, and see if we can get the break under 34.49, and it's traveling down towards this 29 level. Now, where did 29 come from? Pretty easy, right? I wanted to mark this out for you guys in real time. We had this crazy gap up here from this weekly candle. This is an imbalance candle because of what? Right, the earnings peg, right, that ended up happening. So this is actually a true fair value gap, right? So let's just mark these with white lines so you guys can see that very easily. Okay, now we have fair value gap from there to there, right? This would actually be a bullish one, but we can trade it down into that spot, right? So we'd eventually look to go long down once that fills, but for now, right, we'll just kind of keep it as a bearish chart because that's what's happening here at the highs, right? And then if you guys need even more confirmation, look at the complete death of volume here at the top. We have this spinning top, evening star candle, and then obviously volume tapered off with no new high, even though this candle did have more volume here. And then look at the volume uptick, right? Big candle here, and then look at this. I mean, this is disgusting, guys. That's a gross candle. That's a shooting star here at the highs. So I expect a continuation. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see that bounce come from this weekly level right here, right? Let's actually make it green. I wouldn't be surprised to see a bounce come off this level considering it was a pretty big one. But, you know, I will be looking for that weak bid / lower high on the daily look, ideally off 36.74 to 37, and then look to short that and then take and ride through the lower highs. You might be able to get, if this is the route that ends up happening, right, let's say we take our short up here, right, off this lower high that I'm expecting. If it does break, right, and then it pulls back and retest, this is optimal entry. I might add another contract there or size in or just roll, right? Either way, if we get some kind of retest of that 34.49, I'm going to jump in. I expect this to sell down pretty quickly, man. I expect it to sell through this zone very quickly. So we're going to be targeting 29.89. I would probably just look for the 30 or 31 contracts and then try to ride those out. So that is DKNG with a bearish chart. I know, kind of crazy. Okay, guys, lighten the mood. We're gonna jump into some memes. This chart, I think it's ready, man. If you guys didn't know, right, they had earnings here. Obviously, it didn't squeeze on earnings. We had kind of like this sell-off on earnings that filled the gap, which I think in turn was actually more bullish, right? Because it did trap, I think, shorts that tried to short the hole on earnings date, but it did pull down, fill the gap, popped out, retested the top of the gap, rallied again, right? So this is a ton of strength there, ton of strength. The chart is basically bouncing off every single level that it needs to. Shorts, in my opinion, are trapped here at these lows, and it hasn't been friendly, right? I mean, this retest of that zone was beautiful. The the harmonic pattern for the breakout here, you guys can tell. Look at the uptick in volume after the flag and retest here. You guys can't see, right? I can draw this for you guys. I got you. You guys see that, right? That's the retest of the gap right after this big breakout day. Look at this big pop here, right? Look at the volume that follows that. Big push up towards the highs, right? This is good because what do we get here? We get a breakout over this high, which maintains and continues to have strength, but we get a rest day and then a subsequent inside bar rest day. This chart I think is ready to pop. So I might be looking to take, and this is where I'm struggling. I don't know what contracts to take. I almost said shake. It's not even a word. But I mean, the top of this range, the external liquidity is 27. I think that is a damn stretch, if I'm being honest. Um, so I'm kind of struggling on what to take. I really don't know. I did use volume by price here. If we just kind of reset the chart, right, you guys will see that there's this nice little pocket right around here, right? Oh, yeah. If I zoom out just a tad, hold on. Let's reset the chart. You guys can see that, right? Right there, right? So there's a little pocket, and you guys can see we're just slightly under that with the red bar. So this is almost perfect. If I just slide it, it's going to get rid of some of the data back here, and it's going to skew this. But I guess that still looks all right. So you guys can see that, right? Hopefully. I'm talking like there's a live audience. But if it can break over this 18 level, I think it trades into this low volume node. If I had to eyeball this, I don't know what this would be. Like 22, 22.30. I'd be looking for a push up to that spot, and then obviously I think the overhead supply will kind of shut this back down. Outlier move if there's some kind of crazy meme short squeeze. I don't think IWM's done, nor do I think the market's done, so I think a lot of people will get caught on the tail end names like this. I could see 27. I wouldn't, I wouldn't put my money on it. So anything over 1806 or the inside bar high break, which I mean is technically 18 bucks, I'll be looking to take more than likely like mid-January, February contracts on 22 calls or 22 and a half C, right? Just to give you guys a different visual here really quickly, weekly chart, remember what I said, like let's get rid of the target real quick. Actually, target will just keep white. You guys will know that. I mean, just dude, let's get rid of this, this, this. Look how strong this bar is. I mean, the weekly volume here was, remember, 2 of these days were rest days here, and then one of those days was the big breakout. So I mean, on low volume, on a week that shorts should have tried to have at least attempted to push it back down under this green line, right, the 1541. They got trapped on 2 of those days being rest days, two of those days being breakout days. So dude, this chart is primed, right? I just think it's ready to go. I'm not really a meme guy either, so me saying that is, yeah. And this is the level we're looking to break out over. You guys can clearly see structurally, right? This was the higher low that ended up popping it out, ended up selling under, retested, so we now know that this is a very valid level. Obviously, did wick above a little bit, but ultimately ended up selling off. Final retest there, broke down, right? And now we're retesting that zone. So if we can get through that, man, I think this, that's the whole point of that 22 and a half or 22 call, right? This whole zone I think is tradable and it's going to move through it pretty easy. So that is going to be, what is that, setup number 4? Primarily all I'm looking at. I did want to note really quickly for you guys that PayPal is on watch, right? So PayPal, I'm looking to take like April or May contracts, which is pretty far out. But I did say I wanted to see this pullback onto this kind of ascending triangle 60 level. It is retesting that, right? The volume was very, obviously apparent here. The sell-off volume is still upticking, but tomorrow I'd want to see maybe another open underneath this close here. And then volume kind of either rest here, but just either way, right? Some kind of hold or a lower wick here. But volume, I want it to be probably half of this, right? Somewhere down in this lower range. And it just kind of control this 60.31 level, or even maybe a couple days of just consolidation where it just kind of trades down here, right? Kind of how I have my depiction. And then we're going to be looking for, I would say, 70 calls would be fine, right? Kind of in the midpoint of this gap fill. But that's what I'm going to be looking for. But I don't think it's a primary focus. It's not something I want to like put on the watch just because it's going to be so far out. I don't want everyone's attention just to be on contracts that may not play out for another 5 months, right? So this is something that's passive that I'm going to be taking. I will alert it if I end up doing it. But yeah, this is going to be just primary, I guess not primary, just a focus number 5 for me. So that is going to be it, guys. Just to reiterate, right, we have Tesla, Google, short DKNG, GME long, which is my 4th, and then that supplementary long-term contract that I'm going to be possibly taking is going to be PayPal if it behaves at 60. So that is a weekly scan, my friends. I hope you guys enjoyed. I think we just need to get through this like small window of weakness between now and Christmas. Obviously, the leading up into Christmas, like the 2 days, a day before, we start to see some kind of like market movement. Obviously, we see a little bit of a digestion uh, going into the beginning of the new year, and then after the new year, right, a couple days after that first week, that's when the market really starts to go, right, and then going into that OPEX, I expect the market to continue to go, and then I expect to see that halt market kind of slow down and then selling begin. Like I think the sell-off starts February, March, but yeah. So just we got a couple weeks here left, and I want to try to capitalize on as much as I can, but also keep my watch list pretty tight. So I think this is going to set us up the best it can. Don't really care about the indices at all, really. QQQ or SPY, as always, it's supplementary and just on a day-by-day basis. So I'm not going to even review it. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you guys on Sunday. Tomorrow I'll try to do a workshop. I didn't get any requests of what you guys wanted to learn or kind of see me do, so we might not do it, but if you guys have some stuff, throw it in. All right, guys, I'm out of here. See you guys.